What's up, everybody? The 16 personalities all have their own uniquenesses. Sometimes, though, those special traits can be misinterpreted by the other types. Misunderstood. A misblunderstanding, if you will. But which type out of all 16 is likely to struggle the most with this feeling of being misunderstood? And which type is most likely to actually be misunderstood by other types? I think to start off, we gotta go back to the granddaddy of personality types, Carl Jung. My boy Carl actually talked a bit about the types he thought would be the most misunderstood in his book, Psychological Types. So his opinion was that the types who had an introverted perceiving function as their dominant function were the most likely to be misunderstood. And if you're unsure of what cognitive functions are, check out an intro video to that concept in the card above my head. Wow, check out that card, yo. In short, those types that he were talking about are the IJ types. They are the dominant introverted perceivers. Perception in general is how we take in information about the world around us. How do we become aware of reality? When you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell something, you are perceiving it. I mean, that makes sense, right? If you touch something, you are perceiving it through your senses externally or extrovertedly. Easy enough. So what is an introverted internal perception? How do you perceive something internally? And this question is why Carl Jung thought that these types were the most misunderstood, because instead of taking perceptions at face value, they tend to internalize them or view them within. So if an INFJ or INTJ who have NI, introverted intuition, as their dominant function, see a tree, rather than saying, oh, that's a beautiful tree because it's got lots of pretty colors, they might say, to me, this tree represents the growth of young life into old and the passing of time. So nowhere did this tree actually represent the concepts that the INTJ or INFJ was perceiving. Those are just the internal perceptions that naturally came to them. An ISTJ or ISFJ, on the other hand, with SI, introverted sensing, as their dominant function, could look at that tree and think, this tree is much like the one I used to sit under when I was young. It reminds me of peaceful times and brings me back to a place of comfort, which causes them to be happy. So again, there's nothing they can point to externally to explain easily to others why they are thinking what they are thinking. It all comes from within. It's kind of like having a movie playing in your head that you can see very clearly, but then you have to explain to others what's going on or why you are reacting the way you are to this movie in your head that no one else can see. So our boy Carl believed that the world should have empathy for these types because it's difficult for them to express their perceptions. But he also made sure to state it isn't the world's responsibility to learn how to understand you. So he didn't just give all you IJs out there a free pass to blame everyone else in the world for you being misunderstood. Man, my hair is crazy today, yo. So that leaves us with 4 types: ISTJ, ISFJ, INTJ, INFJ. How do we narrow it down to the most misblunderstood out of all of them? And more importantly, let's get real, was Jung even right about the IJs being the most misunderstood types? Did CJ know what he was talking about? All right, so let's really break it down. All right, so the sensing types, the types with S in their type, statistically make up more of the world's population. And while, of course, sensing types can be misunderstood, the fact that there are statistically, supposedly, fewer intuitives in the world would lead me to think that intuitives are more likely to feel misunderstood and to actually be misunderstood. But it's not just a rarity thing, okay? Sensing types across the board tend to communicate much more clearly than intuitives. This is because they feel a responsibility to be able to prove whatever they are saying. Intuitives use much more vague language that doesn't always mean exactly what the words themselves they are saying seem to say. Intuitives don't feel like they need to give you details on exactly what they are talking about. They just feel the need to kind of give you the overview, and they figure that you can fill in the blanks. It can lead everyone around them to be like, I'm not really sure what you just said. How many times have I heard that in my life? Okay, then we move on to thinking types, which are interesting because they can be misunderstood as being robotic or cold, when in reality, they just aren't the best at expressing themselves emotionally. And that is important because emotion conveys intent. So there is a huge difference between, hi, how's it going? And, hi, how's it going? So communicating with emotion, which is what feelers do much more often and much more freely than thinkers do, helps to clear up any misunderstandings about where your words are coming from. All right, so even with all that said though, thinking types are typically less concerned about being misunderstood, at least in this emotional way, and some of the more ego-driven people who are thinkers might even hold it as a badge of honor. Sort of like, of course they don't understand me, I am just so much smarter than they are. So the feeling types, though they are able to communicate with emotion, are not necessarily communicating their ideas in a way that makes sense to others. For example, if a feeling type is excited about an idea they have and they're trying to explain it to someone else, that other person might very well be like, wow, I can tell you are really excited about this, but your idea makes no sense. I do not understand what you're talking about. So, given what we have discussed in this portion of the video, that leaves us with the NF types. They're communicating abstractly, not about facts and details, but about the overview and general idea behind the facts, expecting you to fill in the blanks, communicating with emotion rather than logic. And if we're taking what CJ said as authoritative, that would leave us with the INFJ as the most misunderstood type. But I didn't say that. There's another type to look at. Stop putting away your books and zipping up your backpack. Class isn't over yet. Because people, there's another type that we gotta bring into the conversation. What type could that be? Gatsby, what type do you think we're gonna talk about? Meow, 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 meow. I can't understand. Gatsby, I do not speak cat. I don't even know why I asked you. So out of all the types, INFPs tend to be the most fiercely individualistic about their values and identity. And this is because of their dominant function, introverted feeling, or FI. Now, ISFPs also have dominant FI, but because the INFPs are intuitive, a lot of times their identity comes from an abstract place instead of an actual experience they had in their life, or even from any facts. For example, an INFP might become vegan because they believe it's wrong to eat meat, and they might not need to see any factual data for them to form that conceptual value and make it a part of who they are. Because their identity is born from abstract ideas or principles, it can sometimes be very hard for the INFP to portray their values or feelings to others. So that can lead to a sense of loneliness, which can sometimes double down on itself and lead the INFP to go so far as to take on uniqueness or being misunderstood as part of their personality. There's a good case for the INFP there, but we discussed the INFJ earlier. So the INFJ type, which we discussed earlier, may seem similar to the INFP because only the P and the J are different, but when you look at the functions of the two types, you can see they are actually quite different. Compared to INFPs, INFJs have extroverted feelings, so their identity tends to be more formed through their relationships with people who are close to them. As an introverted type, they are still independent, but INFJs tend to be much more willing to socially go with the flow or blend in with social groups. INFJs can find themselves acting like social chameleons, blending in to make friends wherever they go. The downside to this is that because they blend in so easily and usually get along with others without much effort, they can forget to spend time processing who they are or what they as an individual value, which is something that the INFP with FI does naturally all the time. If you spend all day blending in with others, then it can be hard to know what you are like at your core. This can lead to INFJs feeling like not only are they misunderstood by others, but also that they don't really fully understand themselves. My conclusion is that INFPs probably feel like the most misunderstood type, and that is definitely fair for them to feel. Along with INFJs who struggle with communicating the way they see the world as well as knowing who they really are, I would say in my book, these are the most misunderstood types. But remember, that doesn't give you license to drop out of society and blame everyone else for not getting you. It just means you might need to work a little bit harder for others to eventually understand you. What weird thing fascinates each of the 16 personalities? Check out the answer to that in this video right here. And until next time, stay cool and attractive. Each of the 16 personalities has a strange and secret fascination. Something each type tries to hide from other people. Maybe even hide it from themselves.